Hi, my name is Dylan Carey, and today is April 20th, 2025. Let's start by screen sharing. I chose determination of gender, genes versus hormones, and I'll be walking you through how gender is determined in the human body. The focus will be on how communication and coordination between genes and hormones guide the development of male or female reproductive systems. My title, Determination of Gender, Genes versus Hormones, is a little contradictory, but what we'll see is that these systems actually work together in a very carefully choreographed process. What determines gender? Starting by distinguishing sex and gender, biologically, sex is determined by chromosomes XX for females and XY for males. Um, Gender is more of a complex interaction of biology and environment. The body relies on signals from specific genes and hormones to guide the development of internal and external reproductive structures. It's almost like a relay race. Chromosomes pass the baton to genes, then genes pass it to the hormones, and so on. Each step needs to occur in the right sequence and timing, showing how critical this coordination is. So just to re-emphasize that chromosomes XX and XY provide the genetic blueprint. Hormones will guide the physical development of reproductive structures, and the coordination between genes and hormones is essential. The role of the SRY gene is very critical in genetic determination, which stands for sex determining region Y. It is only found on the Y chromosome. When the SRY gene is present, it activates pathways that lead to the formation of testes. These testes will then start producing hormones like testosterone and AMH. Without the SRY gene, like in individuals with the XX chromosomes, the gonads develop into ovaries by default. So this is the very first checkpoint in gender development triggered by a gene but leading to hormonal changes. So again, to highlight, the SRY gene is located on the Y chromosome, which triggers development of undifferentiated gonads into testes. And the testes begin hormone secretion, which would be testosterone and AMH. And if SRY is absent, then ovaries develop by default. Testosterone and AMH play a great hormonal influence. Once the testes are formed, they produce hormones that continue the conversation. Testosterone leads to the development of male internal structures and external genitalia. AMH, or anti-Müllerian hormone, prevents the development of female internal organs. In XX individuals, estrogen from the ovaries helps develop female traits. The presence or absence of these hormones and the body's response to them determine the physical outcomes. This is the clearest example of how hormones coordinate biological development. So AMH will suppress female reproductive tract development, and estrogen promotes female development in the absence of testosterone. Communication pathways and gender development. When we're looking at the communication pathways, this kind of gives us a broader view on the endocrine system that's involved in gender development. The hypothalamus releases GnRH, which signals the pituitary gland to release LH and FSH. These hormones travel to the gonads, instructing them to produce sex hormones. These hormones then influence the brain and body, completing a feedback loop. This system stays active into puberty and adulthood, coordinating reproductive function. It's a perfect example of communication across multiple organs and systems. So just to highlight that, the hypothalamus and pituitary gland play a significant role in the communication pathways and gender development. Gonads will then produce sex hormones, and hormone levels feed back to the brain via either negative or positive feedback loops. DSDs are present when communication breaks down. DSDs are the disorders of sexual development. They occur when there's a mismatch or error in this communication process. For example, someone with androgen insensitivity syndrome has XY chromosomes and testes, but their cells can't respond to testosterone. As a result, they will develop female physical traits. Another example is congenital adrenal hyperplasia. This is where excess androgens cause a genetically female individual, so XX, to develop more masculine features. These examples show the importance of signal interpretation and timing, and really highlighting how tightly coordinated these systems must be and what happens when they're not. In summary, gender determination is not a case of genes versus hormones, like my title slide implies. It's a complex partnership. Genes like SRY initiate the process. Hormones like testosterone and estrogen carry out the instructions. Communication and feedback between the brain, gonads, and target organs ensure that everything stays on track. When the system works, it's seamless, but when it doesn't, it helps us learn even more about how important this coordination is. Kind of highlighting that disorders show what happens when the system fails. And that is the end of my slides. I did make a concept map to kind of correlate this communication or sorry, coordination between genes and hormones. So starting, I just have chromosomal sex, so either XX or XY. And then that kind of leads to if it's XY, then this will happen. And then going on from that, we'll differentiate the gonads. So if SRY is either present or absent, which whether it's present or absent leads to the hormone secretion. And that'll either be through the testes or ovaries. And then that will lead to the target organ response. And testosterone, AMH, and estrogen all have different ones. So I just have a word bank here with SRY gene expression, ovaries, testes, AMH, estrogen, testosterone, and the target organ response is at the bottom. And then on the last slide, I just have the answers to this. So if SRY, XY, if it's XY, then the SR gene expression or SRY gene will be expressed. And If SRY is present, testes will form. If SRY is absent, ovaries will form. And then in the testes, testosterone and AMH will be secreted. In ovaries, estrogen will be secreted. And then the target organ response for each of these hormones, testosterone leads to male genitalia, AMH regresses female internal ducts, and estrogen leads to female genitalia. And that is all I have. Thank you.